Hello everyone, are you ready to go with me up to the mountain? Thank you all so much for sticking with me thus far. It's taken us so many episodes to get to this point. The actual drive time took us over 14 hours and sometimes 16 to 18 hours depending on what was happening out there on the road on any given day. So it was a long drive too. As you can see, it takes lots and lots of preparation and background knowledge for someone to get themselves up to that mountain. I mean, if you're a tourist and you say to yourself, I want to go on a vacation to go see the redwoods or maybe the beaches in the nearby Pacific Ocean. You know what? You can totally do that. It's a free country. But while you're out there, you wouldn't really understand what you were actually seeing. The breathtaking, beautiful landscape disguise was actually going on out in that area. There were plenty of older tourist folk who loved to vacation and sightsee in NorCal. Bob and I blended right in with these tourists. They loaded up the old Subaru, the Jeep Cherokee, or the 350 RX Lexus and went to see all the things and took a lot of photos standing under redwood trees, and they went to the famous Leggett Chandelier Drive and that drive-through tree. They studied maps of the Avenue of the Giants and bought some Bigfoot trinkets and ate all the free breakfasts at the Best Western Inn in Garberville. But these were accidental tourists who never actually knew what was going on around them, nor did they ever really see what was in plain sight. When you come with me and live vicariously through my stories and descriptions, you're going to understand how this all fits together. The history, the industry, the landscape, and most of all, you're going to understand the secrets and unseen undercurrents going on in this mystically beautiful place. Alrighty then, let's go. In Willits, once we had eaten or loaded up the groceries, we followed Main Street due north. As soon as the town fades away, it almost feels as if you're going underwater. Blue skies and sunshine ebb away as the highway descends into a dark emerald green. Even if it's in the middle of the day, the traveler is immediately immersed into the smoky, dark shadows of the redwood forest. Only a few tenacious beams of sunshine cut through the overwhelming vegetation. Often, the forest is shrouded in heavy fog, making it look like a soft velvet blanket. Most of the Redwood Highway is shrouded in fog every morning. Gradually, as if praying, all passengers grow silent as they absorb the wonderment and the awe of the ancient underworld. The trees tower so high, you can't even see the tops of them from the car windows. If you want to feel, see, or experience the full power and strength of the trees, you have to pull over onto one of the many side groves and get out of the car to strain your neck and arch your back up so that you can see the tops of those trees. I never, ever got tired of this part of the trip. I could have made this trip 487 times and I still never got tired of this part of the trip. To say that these trees are big is a gross understatement. Here's a good adjective: colossal, soaring. Some of these trees are literally 400 feet high. That's almost like a 40-foot story building. Here's how whale-like a redwood tree trunk could be. 10 people could stretch their arms around it and they still wouldn't touch each other's hands. Now that's colossal. Just humongous. These trees are alive. You can feel their sparkling energy all around, tingling from the tops of your spine down to your toes. And if you're quiet, you can hear them whispering and talking to each other or anyone else who's listening. Most of these giant elders are older than Christ. These gods were born 1,000 years before him. Because it's so dark and eerie here among the moss and these gigantic trees, you can begin to understand how the legend of Bigfoot was born. Even if you're not superstitious, you can almost imagine seeing his silhouette darting and flitting behind some redwood tree out of the peripheral of your eyes. This part of the highway is so cool. It's spooky and dark and windy. Although you can't see it, you can also feel the damp coastal breezes blowing off the Pacific Ocean, which makes sense because we're only about 20 miles east by the way the crow flies from the coast. After about 20 miles of driving through these hauntingly enchanted woods, the road gradually rises up to a wide open plain to meet the community of Laytonville. Population? A little over 1,000 hippies, dogs, meth heads, motorcyclists, and small business owners, convenience gas station owners, grocers, nursery store owners, and coffee hut baristas. There are a few spare seasonal employees who live in town and work in these small businesses too. Sometimes, for whatever reason, we didn't stop in Willits. We would stop for gas at the Laytonville Chevron convenience store to get gas, grab a drink, and occasionally shop for groceries at Geiger's Long Valley Market. Geiger's not only had a parking lot for cars, but also a dog parking lot at the front of the grocery store. There were always 2 or 3 dogs leashed up out in the front and another 2 or 3 well-trained doggles in the back of trucks patiently waiting for their humans to finish shopping. It would be interesting to know what the dog population was in that town. I'm sure it was significant. Indeed, the whole Emerald Triangle dog population is probably 100 times higher than anywhere else in the country. Hippies and growers sure do love their doggles. But, word up, Laytonville is not a great place to stay overnight, eat breakfast, or dinner. Trust me, I've had to spend the night in Laytonville, budget in, more than once, and it is not a pretty picture. All night long, we endured having to listen to baby-talking meth heads getting into fights just outside our room from 1 to 4 a.m. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, man, the goddamn dog, woman. Go fuck yourself. You hurt my feelings, you drunk-ass muzzlehead. You know what I think? If you're gonna cuss, you should at least cuss like an adult, not a baby. Go fuck yourself, you drunk-ass meth addict. Now, doesn't that just give it a little bit more dignity when you scream and cuss like an adult at 1 a.m. rather than cussing and screaming like a baby at 1 a.m.? No? Okay, wow. Whatever. This is the kind of place Laytonville is. But there's always a good weekend show over at the local bar, Boomer's Saloon. It's always fun to sit at the horseshoe-shaped bar and watch the 60-year-old fried blonde, sexier in a leather purse from Tijuana and drunker in hell, Mrs. Boomer. Well, that's what I called her anyways. Miss Boomer or may not own the bar. Maybe she just acted like she owned the place. She was always there when we were there, or come rain or shine, weeknights or weekends. And if you were a young, strapping, and willing boy over 21, you were in luck. Mrs. Boomer always was willing to take right good care of a boy like that. Oh, yes, sir, she loved the boys. Sometimes the boys liked Miss Boomer back. Many boys did not like Miss Boomer back. That dance could get a little awkward. Okay, it could get a lot awkward. I know, because I saw the whole painful scenario unfold before my own eyes. Now, there's a woman who eats boys for breakfast. The price of the drink was totally worth this show at Boomer's when, for whatever unfortuitous reason, you may happen to be stuck spending the night in this fabulous little village of Laytonville. Okay, As soon as we blew that town, we were so close I could almost taste it. Only 17 more miles as the Redwood Highway ascends higher and higher, heading deeper into the forest, coming up to the exit of Rattlesnake Summit. The very next exit after Rattlesnake is our turn up to Spy Rock Road and Middle Road, and just another half mile up the road is the Bell Springs Road exit. Here's a word to the wise. If you pass the building with the giant all-seeing eye on the east side of the highway, you've gone too far for the Spy Rock Road exit, so turn around and go back. That is the 101 Farmers Market, I think. Mind you, these county road turnoffs are really hard to find. There's no street lights, and most of the time the road signs are hidden in overgrowth with lush vegetation. The thing is, you should never randomly turn off the Redwood Highway onto any of those Emerald Triangle County roads to mosey on up to go see a weed farm. Oh no sir, not if you value your life. Because first of all, you'd never be able to find your way to where you were going without an escort, at least the first time, or even find your way back. It's very remote up there. These roads are tough to negotiate, and many of the places we picked up at, you couldn't even get to without having four-wheel drive. This is all completely intentional. Growers have been hiding out from the authorities in the Emerald Triangle since the Nixon administration first criminalized weed in the early 70s. Second of all, you would never want to approach anybody's property uninvited or without them expecting you, because you might get shot or attacked by a domesticated but well-trained she-wolf who patrol the property. Electronic fences and road gates. Just to get to the boys' farm, we had to have the codes to get through at least 2 gates. And before we could even greet the boys, we had to get past the she-wolves, Sophie and her sister, who were both half dog and literally half wolf. Now, here's a little more background regarding cannabis in the Emerald Triangle. Every region's weed supply in the United States is generally taken care of in a specific region out in the Emerald Triangle. I'm overgeneralizing about this a little bit, but as a general rule, this is pretty true. For Utah, it's up in the mountains of Mendocino and Humboldt County lines, right there where the two counties meet in those mountains. These are the go-to places for most Utah brokers. This is where the majority of Utah farmers grow, and this is where most Utah brokers, farm workers, and trimmers come to buy. Of course, for everyone, there's plenty of exceptions. We went to other places too when Tiny had a crop his butt to get a better deal, but mostly we only veered out of the Utah zone when supply got tight at the end of July and August, or maybe our zone had run out of product. During those times, Tiny and Trey would go rooting around other regions looking for product for us to drive back. Sometimes Tiny would find a trusted contact and they would offer a really good one-off deal, and then we would go to those places to pick up the loads. I'll talk about those places later. Occasionally, other brokers from other parts of the country would come in and poach the supply from Utah. But as a whole, the Utah suppliers farmed off the branches of, again, Bell Springs Road, Middle Road, and Spy Rock Road, and even Island Mountains sometimes. These were the trusted places, the secure boundaries where deals were made between the Brotherhood of Utah weed farmers and brokers. It makes you wonder, where are the places in the Emerald Triangle that supply your respective regions? You have to understand that most of the people in the industry, whether it's on the farming supply side or on the brokering and distribution side, almost all of these people have known each other since high school. Sometimes even longer than that. Many of them are also related, brothers, cousins, or like Trey and we were. Trey started slinging when he was in high school, and later when he was running the east side of Salt Lake, one of the farmers, Jeff, who grew and sold to him and helped him find more product, also had supplied him with product back when he was in high school. There's nothing random about this business. If the broker doesn't know the farmer, the broker's brother knows the farmer, or the cousin knows the farmer. Nobody ever buys or sells from an unknown person. Nobody goes to work on a farm who doesn't already have a trusted connection. Everybody has to be vouched for. One of the biggest reasons Tiny was willing to merge all his clients with Trey's was because not only did Trey have good distributors beneath him, but he also had great connections in the Emerald Triangle. At the time, I had no idea about any of this with Trey. You'd think you know your kids, but man, I sure didn't. I thought Tiny was Trey's best friend and they loved to go rock climbing together. Talk about seeing but not knowing. I remember the first summer back in 2010, Trey told me he was going out to work on a farm in NorCal. I was like, what? What? Who are you going to go work for? What exactly are you going to go be doing? He was kind of non-committal because, quite frankly, he wasn't quite sure himself. Regardless of where he was going, who exactly he'd be working with, or even what he would be doing for that matter, he only had a handshake from 6 months before with Jeff, who is now a farmer up on Spy Rock County Road somewhere. My foolish son was throwing himself into the wind and hoping to land someplace. But what 19-year-old boy worth his salt ever listens to his mom? This idea about Trey going to the farm that summer was the brainchild of both Trey and Tiny. They had just merged their two clienteles together maybe 4 months earlier, and they figured that if Trey could go out, get the lay of the land, meet more connections out in the triangle for future wholesale brokering prices, and also learn how to farm, then later they could get their own farm and grow for themselves. Unfortunately, ultimately, they were never able to supply the whole east side of Salt Lake with just one farm because there's just too much demand. They would have had to grow 10,000 to 5,000 plants for their farm for their brokering needs. Farms like that, farms with 10,000 plants or 5,000 plants, that draws way too much attention from California DEA. Better just to stay under the radar and piecemeal lots from different small farms. When Trey took off to find his fortune out in Cali, he rode the train from Salt Lake City to Oakland, and then he had to take a bus up to Laytonville. It took him more than 3 days with all the stops along the way. What a little adventurer my boy was, pure Americana. A young man setting out by himself, going west to find his fortune. Maybe he wasn't just going out to find his fortune as much as he was going out to find himself. Me, I thought he was just fine where he was. He was found in Salt Lake City. He didn't need to be going out there. I surely wasn't keen on letting my boy go, but what if he never came back? What if he got lost and we never found him again? I was sick with worry. Had I actually understood how tight this whole community is, the kind of tight brotherhood that holds these pods together, I probably wouldn't have worried quite as much. I still would have worried. I always worry about that child in particular. Colin was from Vermont, and even he had a bunch of his slinging high school buddies from Vermont working for him out in Utah. Although he was from Vermont, Colin also had relatives in Utah in the industry, and that's where he got his in Utah. And of course, the only reason we were invited to first start out driving and then later work our way up into the business was because we were Trey's parents and enjoyed the same privilege of deep trust and family loyalty that the rest of them did. If Trey vouched for us, we were good. This system is actually a pretty good system. It helps everybody to feel a little more safe when they're working with people they've known for decades and long years of merit. There's always a Utah connection. Always. One August, I remember even going up to Chico, California, which is just outside of the Triangle, to pick up a load. As we were bagging the product and chit-chatting, the supplier told me his mother had graduated from BYU. As you can see, the whole industry is interconnected. Well, that's about all the time we have for tonight. So, just remember, stay out of trouble. And if you ever do get into trouble, be sure to call your trusted Utah connection. They will come running. And whatever you do, don't do anything I would do. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.